So let us start with our new topic for the class today. In the previous class, Meeta ma'am has started the other part of the syllabus, which would include office procedures basically. So today I'm going to cover the topics which is dark management, file management, communication, forms, procedures and drafting. And if time permits, we will be covering noting as well. So let us start with the dark management first. So what is dark management? What is dark actually? First of all, let us understand this. Dark refers to all the communication received or issued by an office or a department. Now, what kind of communication that would be? The communication would be written communication, such as in the form of letters, telegrams, interdepartmental notes, files, fax, messages, emails, etc. All right. So what all kind of communications are there which is received in the written form in a department or a ministry? These are in these types, and we will be discussing all of these in detail in the upcoming slides of the communication chapter. All right. So all the dark refers to all the communication which is received or issued in the form of written communication and specifically in these forms. So this is called as dark. Now, question comes up like what form of communication? We have discussed it. Now, in an office or department, when a dark comes or arrives, now who receives the dark in the office? There must be a unit or there must be certain facility that must be receiving that kind of dark which is coming to an office or a department. So the dark is received in the central registry which is maintained by each department separately, or information facilitation center. Information facilitation center. So the dark is received here in the central registry or information facilitation center. These are the centers or the registry which is the unit specifically designated to receive the darks, and then from here the issual of dark is held. So now what happens from here? The dark is received in the central registry, or in case information facilitation center is there available. Now from here the dark is distributed to different sections in the departments and ministries. See, if you remember, Meeta must have discussed about the hierarchy of departments or the offices in a ministry. First is the ministry, then comes the departments, then sections, and then branches. So from here it is distributed, the dark is distributed to every section, and for that particular thing, like for distribution thing, there is a work allotment chart which defines that which dark would be received by which of the section, or which dark has to be sent to which section. So finally we have the dark that reaches a section, and finally when dark reaches a section, it is called as a receipt. All right. So you must know the difference between a dark and a receipt. Although the term dark and receipt can be used interchangeably, but there is a very minute difference between both of them. The dark is the communication which is received by the any office at first, and when it is finally distributed to the sections, received in a section when a dark is, it is called as receipt. All right. Now let us understand the classification of dark. See, dark can be classified as or categorized as classified darks, immediate dark, top priority dark, urgent, fixed date, etc. These are certain kinds of dark which can be used. All right. Various other kinds we will be discussing in further slides. Let us understand the classified dark here at first. See, classified dark, as the name suggests, it is the kind of secret, it has secretive nature. This is secretive in nature. So classified dark is basically all the documents that have security grading. Security grading. All right. What is security grading? It is like it may be bearing the grades such as secret, confidential, etc. So this is basically secretive in nature, and it always bears a security grading, which is such as secret. The dark will have, up on the top of it, there will be there will be in writing that it secret or confidential. So this is written on the dark. So we can classify or categorize it as a classified dark. Now, as because this is confidential in nature and because this is very secretive in nature, there is a prominent feature of this kind of dark, that it is always addressed to the officer by name and not by the designation. Because if the designation is given, that it would become very clear, like this dark would go to this and this authority. If the name is given, then the name of a person, then a similar name may have that 2 or 3 persons may have similar name, so that still has the element of some kind of confidentiality in that. So its feature is that it is addressed to officer by name and not by his or her designation. All right. So basically, what else we should know about classified dark? See, they are not opened in the central registry. Like I have mentioned in the previous slide, that whenever a dark comes, it is first of all received in the central registry. But in this case, whenever there is a confidential dark, it is not received in the central registry, but it is sent directly to the concerned officer, whose name is written over the dark. All right. So this is the nature of classified dark. So let us now move to our next topic, which is the process of disposal of dark or the receipt. See, now we will understand the process which is involved in a from receiving of a dark till its disposal to the sections. All right. So here the role of CRU becomes very important. What is CRU? CRU is the Central Registration Unit, or we can say Central Registry, as we have discussed in the previous slide. I did not explain it in the previous slide because I was to explain it here. So the role of CRU here is very important for the successful receiving and disposal of a dark, or we can say a receipt. All right. So CRU is basically the main unit which is responsible for successful receiving and disposal of dark in the concerned department. Receiving and disposal. All right. So this is also considered as the backbone for the successful and sustainable implementation process of e-office in an organization. I must tell you that from some 2-3 years back, e-office has been introduced in the central ministries, and there is a new document for all the procedures and the office management related stuff, which has been updated in 2019. So in that document, the previous document was published in 2015. So what is the basic difference between both of them? That the new document covers all the matters which are dealt in physical form, like how they will be dealt in if they are to be managed electronically or by the e-office. So let us come to the topic. Sorry. So let us come to the topic again. So CRU, we were reading about CRU. So CRU is responsible for receiving and disposal of the dark, and even in the e-office, it becomes very important for the successful implementation process. So it is basically the backbone for CRU is backbone for the e-office also to function perfectly. Now we know the functions of CRU, like receiving and disposal of dark and etc. etc. So what is a CRU actually? Like what is it? It is a section, or we can say a particular designated unit within a department. All right, that consists of various functionaries like clerks or the night duty clerks. Night duty clerks. We can call the clerks night duty clerks and data entry operators. There are several in the ministry, in each department and in each section. So this unit basically receives and then receives, registers, converts the physical dark into e-receipts wherever the e-office has to work, and then distribution and sending to the respective sections. All right. So CRU is, I've explained everything about CRU. CRU is a section or a unit in a department comprising of functionaries like clerks and the data entry operators. What it does is receiving and disposal of the dark. It is basically a backbone for the e-office. In detail, what it does, it receives, registers, converts physical dark into e-receipts, and then final distribution and sending into the respective sections is done. All right. So let us understand the process now. I have told you the basic and the main responsible unit involved in the process, which is the Central Registry Unit, CRU. Now it does what? We will be reading that. First step is receiving of the dark. See, the dark is received maybe during office hours, during the office hours, or outside the office hours. So whenever the dark is received during the office hours, it would be received by the CRU, or I have told you the Information Facilitation Center. Obviously, if the dark has an urgency grading, then it would directly be sent to the addressee or the name of the minister or the officer given on the dark. And if it is received outside the office hours, it would be the duty of the night duty clerk to receive the dark. All right. So the next step is scrutiny of the dark. See, one more thing, like in e-file, all the physical dark will be received through e-office, and in e-office, it is received into the receipt section. All right. Now comes the scrutiny of the dark. See, dark would be scrutinized, like it would be checked whether it has, what kind of grading it has. It is top priority, immediate grading, as we have read in the previous slide. What kind of grading it has, and if it has an urgency grading, so it would be dealt with by at first, right? Sorry, urgency grading. If it has urgency grading, dealt with at first. All right. Other than this, what happens at the scrutiny stage, the entire dark will be sorted out section-wise and office-wise. All right. So the next step is registration of dark. See, we have received the dark, we have scrutinized that which dark, belongs to which section or which department. The CRU does that. It scrutinizes. And then comes the registration of dark. The dark should be registered at the entry level, okay, so as to maintain the accountability of every paper which is received. And it becomes the duty of every functionary who first receives the physical dark to diarize it. Diarize it means to write down in the diary of the section that which dark we have received at which date with proper details. It is the duty of the functionary which first receives the dark, and the registration is done at the entry level to maintain the accountability. All right. Now there are certain modes of registration also. Modes of registration may be three kinds, which is physical mode. Like we are doing everything, like registration of the dark is being done physically. Like by hand, we are writing in the register. It can be in the electronic form. Electronic is through e-file, but understood. Then comes the transition mode. It can be from any of the three kinds. Transition mode is where the processing is done physically and the tracking is done electronically. That is the processing physically, and when the DAC is sent to other departments, if it will be sent to, then the tracking will be done electronically through e-file. E-file's role comes up here as well. All right. So this was the registration. Then comes the acknowledgement of the DAC. Now, what is acknowledgement? See, acknowledgement of the DAC is that we have received the DAC and all right, it is of this and this type. So it is done by the recipient in the department. And how would he or she acknowledge the DAC? By just signing it in the clerk or the peon's book. The peon who is there working, or the MTS staff, the multitasking staff, they have their own book, like whatever is received, what kind of DAC is received, and all the details further. So acknowledgement will be done by the officer who has received the DAC by just signing it in the peon book. And in case of e-office, the acknowledgement is done automatically by the system. All right, there the recipient do not have to do anything. It would be done e-office. It would be done automatically by the system through emails or SMSs. So that was the acknowledgement of the DAC. Next comes the distribution of DAC. See, now finally, then we have acknowledged the DAC. We have received the DAC. We have scrutinized that which section, like what DAC is related to which section, and then we have registered the DAC, and finally acknowledgement has been done. Then comes the task of distribution of the DAC. Here, the receipt will be sent, or the DAC will be sent to the concerned officer or the section. All right. Whenever in a department the DAC is received, it is all these steps are done. Then finally, the DAC will be sent to the section or the officer concerned. The DAC which the officer or the section which the DAC is addressing to, the DAC will be finally sent to them. And as I told you, when the DAC is finally received by the section or the officer who is concerned with the DAC, then the DAC is called as receipt. So in this case, the receipt will be sent to the concerned officer of the section, and the DAC with urgency grading specifically is distributed as and when received. Nothing of the above needs to be done, and the DAC with urgency grading will be directly sent to the addressee, as I have told you before as well. So that was the distribution of DAC. Then comes the pursual marking and sending of the receipts. Now, after receiving the DAC or the receipts, here the role of section officers comes into play. Now, what the section officer will do? The section officer will separate the receipts that would be seen by the higher officers. All right, he would separate up the receipts, that this kind of receipt my higher officer will be, looking into, and some kind of receipt that will be retained for his personal attention. So he will segregate the DACs like this is of higher importance, my higher officer would be dealing with it, or all right, this I can manage, or the personal attention needs to be given to such and such kind of DAC. Here in pursual marking and sending, it is done. If it needs to be sent, it would be sent to the higher officer. This is the meaning of pursual and marking, that he would segregate the DAC according to its importance. All right, next comes the movement of DAC. Finally, the movement of the DAC is done. Now, how it is done? It is basically done in the form of pads, which is the receipt pads are maintained by the departments, and then the DACs are, the DAC moves in such kind of pads. And in case of e-file, every movement of a receipt is tracked automatically. So there is no need to maintain some pads or something like that. So in case of e-file, the movement is tracked automatically. All right. So why this movement is happening? Because in case the section officer has decided that this DAC has to be, considered by the higher officers. So in that case, the DAC will move, and this kind of movement will be done in the form of receipt pads, or in case of e-file, this movement is tracked automatically, and it would be directly sent through emails, etc., to the higher officers or the other department if it is concerned with. Now that will be reading in the next point. Allocation of disputed receipts. Now you will understand what is movement of receipt. Movement of receipt can be internally within the section if the DAC has to be, handled by the higher officer or the SO himself or any other officer for that matter. That is internal movement. An external movement comes up here, allocation of disputed receipts. What is a disputed receipt? It is a receipt which is missent to a department which is not concerned, which is not the receipt which is not related to that particular section of the department. All right. So in that case, such kind of receipts will be brought to the notice of under secretary. That see, we have received such and such kind of DAC, and please, you deal with it. And for that thing to happen, for the under secretary to take action on this, it has 2 days to be specific to redistribute the DAC to the section which to which it is concerned with. All right, so this was the process of DAC and the receipts disposal, which is receiving, then scrutinizing, then registration, acknowledgement, distribution, pursual marking and sending, and then finally movement and the allocation of the disputed DAC. We can, mark it as one stage also, and we can read it in different parts as well. Next comes the file management. We are done with the DAC management. And in the DAC management, what we covered is, let us understand it again. The DAC management, we read about the classification thing, and then we read about the process. Then comes the file management. Now, what is a file? A file is a collection of papers on a specific subject. All right. The specific subject which to which a number is being assigned. All right. So what a file is, it is basically a collection of papers on a specific subject. And there is always a number assigned to it. It's significant, we will be reading now. So, what does a file comprises of? There are certain components of a file. A file comprises of notes, correspondence portion, it has appendix to those, and then the appendix to correspondence. Now the purpose of attaching appendix is if the notes portion or the correspondence portion becomes used. So basically and primarily there are 2 main components in a file, which is notes and correspondence, and other beings. To be precise, there are 4, and otherwise main components are 2, which is notes portion and the correspondence portion. Now in case of e-file, there are these kind of components: 6, notes portion, correspondences portion, draft communication portion, references, linking files and attached files. See, questions can come up like what all are the components of notes and what all are the components of an e-file. All right. So now, understanding what a file management system is, let us understand it in 2 ways. See, the file management system, if we have to understand this, we will be understanding it by dividing it in 2 parts, which is numbering of files, how the files are being numbered, as I have discussed in the definition itself, that it is a collection of paper which have been numbered. All right. So this is numbering becomes a very important thing in the file management system. And the next is how the papers are filed, how the files are being kept, how the papers, are managed in a file. Filing of papers. All right. So let us understand and discuss the file numbering systems first. There are basically 2 types of file numbering system. First up is the functional file numbering system, and the second is the system based on subject classification. Let us first understand the functional file numbering system. All right. What is the need basically to number the files. See, why the file numbering is important? We must know this. It is basically for the convenient identification, sorting of files becomes easy, storage becomes easy, retrieval of papers becomes easy. All right. So this is basically the purpose of numbering a file. Now, the functional file numbering system. See, it was basically developed just to make a one file system relating to the functions which are common to all the ministries and the departments. All right. Under this, the range of the business a department the range of business a department does, it is analyzed by keeping the businesses under various heads. All right. So, what are the heads under which the business of a department is kept? These are of four types: basic heads, primary heads, secondary heads, and tertiary heads. Why are we reading these heads? Because in this file numbering system, we maintain certain heads under which the business of a department is finally, will be categorized so that the numbering becomes easy. So the basic head includes the main functions of a department, main functions. The primary head includes the activities under each function to be done. All right. The secondary heads include the aspects, or we can say the operations to be dealt by each activity, under each activity, sorry. And the third, final one is the tertiary heads. Here, the factors which are to be considered regarding the aspects and operations are discussed here. All right. So these are basically the four kind of heads which are kept under this this numbering system. And this numbering system is basically was developed for managing the common functions of the ministries and departments under one head. Also, one more thing which is important in this system is there are certain codes which are given relating to these common functions. All right, there are codes given so that the keeping of files becomes easy. Like, let me give you an example. There are these codes which are exactly the same given under the government documents. For example, A code is given for the establishment of the section, like it becomes the codes for the common functions of different ministries. All right. So the A code is for the establishment, B code is the welfare function of the ministries and the department, C for the vigilance, and D for the common office services. All right. So these are basically the codes which are given in this file number system for the common functions of the department. So there are two main things which needs to be, taken care of or remembered, that there are four basic heads which are maintained under this functional file numbering system, and there are certain codes which are also given to the common functions of different ministries and the departments. Now let us understand the another type of the numbering system based on subject classification. See, this is also called as the conventional file numbering system. Conventional, why? Because it has been in use for like many years until the functional file number system was introduced. So under this system, what exactly was there? That here the file numbering system for every department, and in every department for every section for that matter, the file numbering system was different. This is because this was introduced because it was becoming very complex system for every department. See, in every ministry and in every department, and then in every section, for every section there were different file numbering systems. So there were so many file numbering systems that it was becoming a little complex, not little actually, a more very complex process for the storage and the proper updating, keeping the update for the files. So for this purpose, the functional file number system was introduced because this was becoming complex. Now there are certain parts which are used under this file numbering system. As we read, there were basic heads. So here there were some subject codes, then the subhead codes. There were the serial number given to the files which were opened, and then the year in which file was opened. So there was these kind of parts used to be in this numbering system. Subject codes were given, like which subject was has which code, like I told you in the functional file numbering system. Then there was the subhead codes, then there was the serial number for the files which were opened and the year in which they were. These were basically the four parts of this file numbering system. Now let us understand part B, which is filing of papers. We have read in the file management system that the file management system is read in two parts, which is numbering and which is filing. So numbering we have just read. Now we will discuss about the filing of the papers. See, a file, as I have told you, the physical file has two portions, which is notes portion and the correspondence portion. In e-file, we have 6 portions like that only. So, filing of papers means we need to place the papers under specific heads. For example, the heads are PUC, which is paper under consideration, like we are, working upon this consideration, or FR, which is fresh receipt. So filing of papers means we are placing the papers under these heads in the correspondence portion or the notes portion of the file. See, there are two portions now. So even in this portion or in this portion, we have to put the papers. And for putting those papers under these heads, we need to first tag the papers like, are these the paper under consideration or these are the fresh receipts. Okay, fresh receipts are those on which the action has not been taken yet. Papers under consideration are the receipts for which the department has started acting upon. So there are certain guidelines finally for filing of these papers. So what are they? Guidelines.